It was after this meeting that O'Neill finally decided to sound out a board member about a possible merger with Bank of America. The director he spoke with was a old friend financier Alberto Cribbior, whom O'Neill had put on the board in 2003. His response was extremely negative, but Stan Ken Lewis, his uncle, replied that Cribbior, according to the account O'Neill gave to Fortune, Cribbior would later say he didn't recall this conversation, but other Merrill's accused that back up O'Neill's versions. Grover didn't like the idea of Merrill Lynch losing its brand and identity to a bank based in Charlotte, and he still didn't think it was necessary. He thought Merrill should raise capital and take a big road, write down exactly what O'Neill felt the company should do strongly and purpose. This had to do with O'Neill's mental state. O'Neill concluded that if he couldn't bring Cabriori around, he wouldn't be able to bring any of the directors around. So instead of taking to the found board, he dropped the idea. As the other directors found out, he had approached Lewis, but never informed them. They should report. In early October, O'Neill finally died, something he should have done much earlier. He fired Semercy and Latanzio a week before he was let go. Semercy received in emails from Fakahani praising him for his risk management efforts, yet Semercy at least seems to have sense that his firm was near the loss estimates were growing. Too many other executives were complaining and trying to show O'Neill that the situation was worse than he was portraying it. A group of them fairly high up in the company had come to kill his estimates of AAA losses. The Fantastic Fleming, Mengele, both Bright and another risk manager went from exile and gave them the task of sorting out Merrill's serious business. Incredibly, it was the fifth time anyone at Merrill Lynch, independent of the traders themselves, had attempted to put a value on the firm's massive serious exposure. 2 days after Semercy and Latanzio were fired, Merrill Lynch pronounced its earnings, telling investors in advantage of its third quality earnings call that it would be taking a large write-down in its subprime mortgage book, which it estimated at around $5 billion, and was going to be the largest trading loss in Merrill's history. This was the first investors would hear about Merrill's subprime exposure, in that indirectly contradicted everything Merrill he had said previously about its serious portfolio and its risk management capabilities. The stock plummeted. A few weeks later, O'Neill met with the board to go over the third quarter numbers. In the intervening weeks, new executives who had been installed in the mortgage departments had concluded that the firm should use more pessimistic assumptions in coming up with its serious valuations. They recommended a write-down of $8 billion instead of $5 billion in the days prior to the meeting, and despite the earlier negative reactions from Gregory about his having approached Ken Lewis, O'Neill had sounded out the second CEO about a possible merger. Ken Thompson of Wachovia, like Lewis, Thompson was receptive. O'Neill thought Wachovia merger would be more palatable to be bought. Merrill was the bigger. The bigger name, unlikely to be subsumed the way it would be in a Bank of America deal, O'Deal decided he would use a dinner with board members to make the case for a merger. On their way to the board dinner, Fleming consulted O'Neill how to approach the board. "You have to walk them through this," he said. "You can just tell them that we need to sell the company. They aren't going to buy it. The company was performing tremendously until this Quaker. That's how they are viewing it." Shooting him a subsumed look, O'Neill's responded with "Are you saying that? Who are you taking to?" "I haven't talked to anyone," replied Fleming. "I am an investment banker. This is what I have done my whole career." But that kit of gangly persuasions just wasn't in O'Neill's toolkit. The dinner itself was frosty. According to one participant, the directors were angry. There was no small take to honour. The board members were served their phones, and particularly before they could take a bite, O'Neill said, "I think we should sail to Wachovia." The board members were stunned. Their anger turned to fury. Some began grilling O'Neill's on Mary's exposure, others explaining that his approaching Wachovia was a terrible breach of corporate etiquette, so he's supposed to get a board's permissions before approaching another company. Their reactions was vitriolic, recalls one participations. "I have never seen that kind of interplay between a CEO and a board of directors. The board had zero interest in pursuing a merger with Sokovia. I am on the board of a public company now," Komowski told the New Yorker. "If I thought the CEO was out trying to sell the company, it had a hard time having confidence in that fellow." Well, maybe, but while O'Neill's besides manager may have been lacking, he was doing exactly the right thing in trying to sell Merrill Lynch. This time it was the board that was in denial. The board meeting took place Sunday and Monday, October 21 and 22 to 20, no, 2007. It was a lot of fun. The board had lost confidence in O'Neill, and he was smart enough to see it, and the numbers Merrill was about to unveil were truly ugly. On Wednesday, October 24, the earnings were released. Merrill Lynch announced a net loss of $2.3 billion, which included a write-down of $7.99 billion in subprime mortgage securities. The bottom line is we got ingrown by being over-reposed to subprime, and we suffered as a result of an unprecedented liquidity squeeze and deterioration in the market. O'Neill accepted the blame the following evening. Jenny Anderson of the New York Times began calling and emailing various board members and executives trying to confirm a rumor she had heard. He got Fleming on his cell phone around 7:30. After a few pleasantries, he said one word to him, Wachovia. He gave her a quick no comment and got off the phone, but another source later that evening confirmed O'Neill's approach to Sokovia, and she had the history in the paper the next day. O'Neill was already hanging by a thread. That story finished him off on October 29th, 4 days after the Times broke the news on his approach to Sokovia. Stan O'Neill was gone. He took with him in retirement benefits and Merrill Lynch, he told Fleming Victory shortly before he resigned. After he was gone, thought it wasn't his mistakes he went on, but the mistakes of the men he had surrounded himself with. Fakani, Semercy, and Kim, he had trusted them and they had let him down. He never seemed to understand that they himself had planned to set up destruction by placing his troops into grown people. The fixed income guide got us in 98 and I swore they would never do it again. O'Neill used it to say, referring to the long-term capital crisis, but they didn't it again. For this, he had only himself to blame. 11 months after his ouster thought, O'Neill got a small measure of satisfaction when Merrill was sold to Bank of America for 29 shares during the most traumatic weekend of the financial crisis. O'Neill sends grievous and emails according to Fortune, my brother friend. My friend, it read, you should have helped me sell this business. When we had the change, a final coda, not long after, O'Neill was heavily out the door. Greg Fleming brought Corontal back to Merrill Lynch to help clean up the mess. The first day, he walked out onto the trading floor, and the traders stood as one and cheered.